Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hi. Thank you guys for being here. So I'm Rachel. You're joining me today for this great talk. And everybody here is a parent of a student here, right? Or alumni parent for the most part, except for Anne, who brought me here. Okay, good for me to know. Is there anyone here who has been in Dubai living here more than like 3, 4, 5 years? So how long have you guys been here? 6.5, okay. 7, okay. It's not lifers, but it's good for me to kind of just gauge where everybody's at. So who's under 1 year? Anyone? Okay. Okay, good. So I'm actually just over 1.5 years living here. So the angle, just so you understand the angle where I'm coming from, is just over the hump, but not fully there. But I do love being here, and I love the city and my community and everything that I've built. So that's the kind of where I'm coming from. I'm still new, but not 3 months old.
Not shiny.
Yeah. Yes. So we titled this At Home Anywhere. My book is called At Home Anywhere. It's not really about feeling at home anywhere, though. We'll get to that in a second. So just quickly about me, I am American. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, which is near Niagara Falls, for anybody who doesn't know. I lived in New York City for a while, and my father's actually Canadian, so I'm half-half, and I lived in Toronto before coming here. So most of my life before here was still North America. Canada's not that different. It's different, but not that different. So before moving here, I worked in first HR, so human resources, very much connected to humans and that connection, and I love that world. And then I stepped into personal development, and I worked for life coaches and self-help authors in the US and Canada. So I was like their business manager, then I became their marketing person, then I became an assistant coach for them and helped them run their retreats and things like that. So that's my background, and when I came here, essentially I moved for my husband, so my husband's company is based here. And I wasn't working for the first time in 15 plus years. And I was gonna restart my business here and do all that, but trying to also embrace the space to like figure out what I really wanted to do. But it was within that space that I got really depressed and frustrated with myself, thinking, you've worked in personal development, you know what you're supposed to do to help yourself. What's the problem? Like, why can't you get it together? So that pressure on myself was there. And then one morning in a journal I have, which we'll go through some journaling stuff with you together, I had this idea like, okay, where's the book for this? Where's the book for emotionally supporting yourself when you move and supporting yourself to then be present for your family and all of that? And I went online, and many of the books on Amazon, because I didn't know where to buy books here yet, were for Western women who moved to Asia somewhere, it was instructions on how to work with help and how to, integrate with your kids in their school, which is important, but I don't have kids yet, full disclosure to all of you parents. That wasn't my situation and my space yet. So I said, okay, I think part of my process is actually writing a book and documenting my journey in this way, and then sharing the things that helped me get through it along the way. And that became my book, which I actually published through a Dubai publisher, so it's local and stocked locally here. That's the journey that I went through, and I published it. I had the idea in March, and it was published in November of last year. And then I was invited, actually, just this past weekend to participate in Emirates Literature Festival. So that has really opened me up, and I think helped ground me in the community here and understand what everybody else is going through, not just me. So now that I got settled and felt really good in Dubai, my husband is from Malaysia, and we have family things that we have to take care of there, so now we're splitting our time between Dubai and Malaysia. And that's my present experience right now. Like Thursday, we're flying back there. And so now I'm going through this process again. I'm going through this integration of, now I'm in a new place, and I just felt settled and all of that. So just so you have background on what I'm going through, it is a consistent journey. It's not just, oh, I feel settled and I'll feel settled forever. So like I mentioned, this is not really about being happy anywhere, and the core of my book is about do we have the tools and we trust ourselves enough to have tools inside of us to center ourselves wherever we are, because there will be chaos and change around us constantly. So what is the relationship we have with ourselves? And so why I felt like I can share with you all without having kids yet and without having that experience is because I think that trickles out into all aspects of life, parenting with your spouse or whatever you're dealing with in your own life. So today we'll be going through connecting to yourself, and hopefully this is like an hour of your time that you get to connect with yourself that you don't often. So I just want to check in with how people are feeling, and part of this is getting truthful with ourselves. So this morning, today, I just want you guys to check in with how you're feeling presently right now. You can share if you like, but I'll go first. And I put these here not to say we don't know feeling words, but because sometimes it's hard to really get clear other than I'm frustrated, angry, happy, sad. So those are our basics. Sometimes we go to those. So, okay, I'll just give you two for me right now. I feel enthusiastic under the happy category, enthusiastic for being here. My father is arriving in an hour and a half, so enthusiastic to see him. And then also this morning, I felt unsure, so under the confusion. So unsure a little bit about what it would be like to come here this morning, unsure about taking my father to Malaysia on Thursday to see my father-in-law, all kinds of things like that. So just check in, take a minute if you haven't already pinpointed one. And it's okay if they're not positive. So I just want to present that to you as well. So does anybody want to share one, or anyone that stuck out to you, how you're feeling? Yeah,
I feel a little indecisive.
Okay, good. And you don't have to explain. This is the fun part about getting to know yourself. We don't have to justify how we're feeling. So you're indecisive? Okay. That's okay, right? And you don't have to explain and excuse. So, and just anybody can give me one more.
I think I fall in a couple categories.
Sure, of course. We feel different things every second. Yeah.
This is your, what, 2.5 for me.
Okay.
And move number 12. So
Yeah.
I'm not new to moving.
Yeah.
But I think it's, I feel strong and confident and what have you, but I also am sort of, what did you say it was in?
I said indecisive.
Indecisive, yeah. Sort of like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't have the motivation to just go out and get it like I would. But I mean, I'm happy. I'm just, I don't want to say I'm lazy, but I feel like I'm lazy.
Totally.
There's something that's causing that, indecision.
And that's something we were talking about, actually. I was talking with you before we started. This space often of moving can be the blank space. And so if we're not being productive, we feel lazy. And that's very dangerous because we actually need the space to get bored for clarity to come. But when we are always distracting ourselves, then we're constantly confused. Does that make sense? And that was my experience of just sitting at home. Okay, my husband's at work. I don't know how to get anywhere yet. I can drive to the the market and back. Okay, I'll go watch something. I'll go do something. And constantly, instead of just sitting with it, trying to distract. So that's something we'll talk about too, but I want to just do some reflection. We'll get to that in a minute. So transition, and I like to talk about transition now, not just in the sense of moving, but it can be career change, it can be becoming a mom, it can be kids leaving the house, it can be changing a relationship, whether it's a partner or a friendship, any kind of transition, losing a parent or a family member. All of those things, especially when we live away from home, even though this is home now, they can bring up a lot of things. So even if we're not aware of it, just the fact that we're separate from a lot of our comforts, any transition that happens will have a little bit extra impact on us than maybe someone who's just constantly surrounded by family and friends. But transition brings up everything and our fears, and our brains will try to figure out what's the cause. What's the cause so I can fix it? And so today we're gonna get not to the cause but to the feelings, because sometimes the cause really has nothing to do with it. So when I moved and I was in my depression, I would I just went to my husband. It was his fault because that was the closest thing I could get to. He would go to work, come home, not really ask me how I'm doing because he wanted to just recover from the day, and I'd be like, but I moved here for you. You can't just ask me how I'm doing. Like, that's all I needed. That was where my brain would go. So it was his fault, right? And I had to then take personal accountability and responsibility and say, you know what, I chose to move. I'm choosing to be here. Today I could choose to leave. That would mean a lot of things. It would have an impact. It would mean I'm leaving my husband, going back home, leaving everything I know. But I still have choice. And we're not, I don't think any of us here are in a position where we couldn't be okay if we made a different choice. So right now, we're staying, we're here, and how can we take accountability for that? But many of you can maybe relate to this idea of trying to keep it all together. You have children, you have life, you have work responsibilities, you have colleagues here, you're even surrounded by strangers here with this pretense that I need to make sure everybody just knows that I'm okay and doesn't think anything's wrong with me. Even I have that, standing up here in front of you and teaching and talking about this, and this element of feeling like, oh, but I have it figured out, so you guys can listen. And it's not true. It's not true, right? So we want to believe that everything is okay. There's so many responsibilities. We're grin and bearing it most of the time. If we're out in public, we're grin and bearing something because there's something we're not showing. So I just want to get you guys going and reconnecting to yourself. And I may defer and stop using this depending on what we're talking about and what's coming up, but I wanted to give you just that kind of precursor. So we'll start with being honest with yourself and others. So there's pen and paper. Does anybody need, well, there's extra on the tables that are empty. So everybody has something. And you don't have to share this. I might ask to share, but I always go first. Anything I ask you guys to do, I'll always go first, so that's okay. So I want you to just take the paper and journal on. It doesn't have to be exactly, just quickly. I'll time maybe 5 minutes. So how do you feel about living in Dubai right now, of being away from family and friends if you are? Maybe you're not. My mother-in-law lives here, so not always. Of guiding and raising children here. Are there joys, fears, annoyances, excitement? Are you happy? Do you feel guilty for being happy you're away from your family and friends? Whatever it is. I just want you to just start to get it down on paper. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yes.
There's a book.
Yeah. Go for it. So it's 8:46, so just after I'll watch you. If you notice you feel some resistance about actually being honest, even just to the paper, I encourage you to just let one of those angry or frustrated or sad words out and see what happens. 2 more minutes. You can always take it home and finish it.
No, the school doesn't have homework.
And just close up. You don't have to stop, but close up the thought that you have. Okay, well, was there anything that you haven't shared with anyone else yet that came up for anyone, or did you feel like it was things everybody already knows about how you're feeling?
Process of many, many years, and it's only in the very recent, past that this has come up, and I can safely say it's because of all the moves I've moved. Between me and my husband, we live in 19 countries. We have we've lived together in 10, and we've only been married 12 years. So, but
you don't have to read it. I'm just curious. So you're finding new things, something new.
What I'm finding new is that, I used to be so weighed down by all the moves because of the separation from what I defined as my family.
Yeah.
And that was my past. My mom, my dad, my friends, my, wherever I live. Mm-hmm. And basically, they were obligations. Mm-hmm. I always felt tied to the obligations of staying connected. Not making people feel my distance, because a lot of people were upset that we moved a lot and mom wasn't getting her grandkids, and and it was through so many crises over the years, just ups and downs, that I very recently been able to identify my family and my definition of family, and I've come to terms with it's okay. I still feel like I'm being treated like a 5-year-old, but I'm close to 40 and I have 2 kids, and it's okay that I now can define my family. And putting them first and basically untethering from my old definitions of family has brought about some new freedoms and some empowerment to basically be able to enjoy the moment now and not feel all these obligations. And it's okay to say no to certain family events that actually have to drag me onto a plane to go on places all the time. So that's just something that's come to me recently that I've actually never shared.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and with us. Because and this is what really the intention is, yes, so you guys can see, all the things that are inside, but also the things that maybe the people around us, even our partner or our children, don't know that we're experiencing, because our leadership and emotional leadership helps other people feel comfortable with their own. And so these kind of reflections help us, but really they help all the people around us too, with just by writing. I'm a writer. Maybe you're not a writer, but in some form that you can get these feelings out and these thoughts is really, really helpful. Was there anybody else that was surprised by what they found themselves writing, or was it things that you already kind of knew but never really said, or? Already there, you knew it was all there already. Okay.
I mean, I will just share. I think that I'm aware of my feelings, but I don't go through this process where I identify them, and for sure don't tell the people around me.
Yeah.
So I don't think like my spouse or my kids know that I have these feelings.
Yeah. But maybe they have them too. See, that's the thing. We don't know. If all of us in this room are having them, I'm sure the people closest to us are having some, And I read on the way in the car on the way over, I was not driving, I was reading a nice quote quote that really connected me to what we're talking about is that it's not the feeling that is the problem, that it's the judgment about the feeling that we're having. And so I was feeling even this morning, oh, I'm a bit nervous. Like, really? How many times have you done this? Like, I just got in my head immediately, okay? And so what you're writing, there's no good, bad, right, or wrong with the feelings. It's how you are telling yourself if they're right or wrong. And you wouldn't want, I'm sure, your kids to feel that way, but we do that to ourselves, right? So this awareness in this process is something I find helpful, and I wanted to share with you guys. Yeah.
Is it normal, like, we like some days it's all okay,
Yeah.
and then the next day you're like,
Yeah, totally normal. Anybody else ever feel that way? Yeah, yeah. And so there have been studies on it. If you want me to tell you, yes, logically, scientifically, psychology-wise, yes, there are literally charts and graphs that are very similar to, I don't know if you're familiar with the stages of grief, but the stages of culture shock and expat life and all of that are almost exactly the same.
How long does it actually take to...
Forever. Unfortunately, or fortunately, and I had the same thought when I said to my husband before we left for Canada for Christmas, I said, I love it here, I don't need to leave, we can stay. And then we had a health issue in Malaysia, and now we're spending more of our time in Malaysia. And I said, I don't want to be the person who's waiting for the other shoe to drop, so how else can I look at this? And really what it is that this experience, and you've moved many times, they all prepared you for the next one, but we're never going to get to the place where I can handle everything all the time. Because really, before, when I lived in North America, I was constantly complaining about things there. I was depressed there too. It's not really different. Okay, so but we put that pressure on ourselves to think, okay, I have this stable, and it's always going to be like this. And really, again, these practices are more the things that I want you guys to take away. Is like, okay, even when crap hits the fan, I have this. I can return to this pen and paper. That's all I need. So. Please, of course.
I like one thing that all the movement and changes are getting easier because we are used to it. But what is strange that it's also getting more difficult because we are carrying more and more stuff with us mentally, comparing how it was before. Earlier moves and things sometimes are easier, and then you are, I don't know, judging yourself and what's wrong. Well, I'm not that enthusiastic that I used to be. I'm not taking it that well. I'm not that open, and you're carrying all that history. It's making it more difficult. That doesn't have, does it?
They have their own experiences, right? And we have to. Again, I'm not going to speak for parents because I'm not one, but you have to manage all of that.
So that's what I thought was rather interesting. Right at the very beginning, when you asked, you showed all of those emotions. What emotion you're feeling. And I thought what was complex about that was that I could not say what my feeling was because I was thinking about everybody else's feelings. Because there's my feelings, and then there's my son's, my grade 12 son's feelings, and my grade 11 daughter's feelings, and my husband's feelings. I'm so busy trying to think about everybody's feelings. As the mom, I'm juggling because we're quite new here, and there's everybody's family's feelings that I'm trying to juggle, that I can't focus on me. And I thought to myself, oh, I'm envious of you. That you get to actually bask in your own feelings. And I
would say, you want to come do it?
All the family's feelings.
Yeah, of course. And that's thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure everybody also feels the same, right? And I can make up my own story of that. Well, I have my parents and somebody's in the hospital and somebody, and I'm not thinking about myself, even though I don't have, So it's that's that space, but really that chart. If you're on your own time, you're not here with me in an isolated incident where I'm forcing you to reflect on yourself. 2 minutes. Pulling the feelings list in 2 minutes, and then you can check in with yourself, and that can be enough. You don't have to journal on it, per se, but taking that for yourself. Sorry, I know you've had your hand up.
Along those lines, something that being an employee here and a great counselor.
Thank you for coming.
Every day we have this moment where we are forced forced to stop everything we are doing, which is the national anthem,
Yes.
national anthem.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, you know, we all do it. The kids do it, staff do it. And I decided I'm going to use that moment to think about what I'm grateful for. And there's a lot to be grateful for here. You know, I came from Seattle, Washington originally, and I read about stabbings and shootings. And like, oh, you go back and you see all this homelessness. And yes, there are things that make me sad here too, that I see, like the inequality and exploitation and things like that. Having a bigger footprint. You know, there's all that stuff, but I use that moment to really say, I'm grateful for these things that I have in this moment that maybe other people don't have, you know. So it's almost this forced mindfulness.
That's beautiful.
That we have, and it's set aside just for that purpose, you know.
Thank you for sharing. I love that. If so, there's something that I've learned from my teachers is very similar. Is I don't know if you've heard of Dale Carnegie, not the businessman, but the author in personal development, and he calls it day-tight compartments. So it's similar to a ship or like, you know, a boat that's on water. If there's a leak, all these compartments go up. So there's one on this side, one on this side to make sure the leak isn't going. And he suggests thinking of our days like that. So, okay, I woke up, yesterday's compartment is closed. Tomorrow's not here yet, so that compartment is closed, and just can I focus on this day-tight compartment? And within that compartment, how am I checking in with myself? So maybe it's the bell, maybe it's literally your alarm clock. But what is that moment that you take for yourself? 30 seconds. I don't know how long the anthem is. You could list a lot of things maybe in that time. But whatever the alarm is and whatever, almost like a system you can set up for yourself to check in and do that. Yes, I have the morning, but I don't get up and come anywhere at 8:30 in the morning ever, usually, besides today. So I got up 5:30 to do my thing because I knew I needed that to be present for you, but it doesn't have to be like that. 2 minutes to check in is really, really helpful. Yeah.
It's funny that you say that because that would have been the one thing that I share. So in my writing, all this gratitude is pouring out, you know, and I've moved around a lot. In fact, I don't even know what I would call home. You know, I say when you're far from family, etc. You know, spent my childhood in Abu Dhabi, then DC, and you know, as an adult, I've lived in New York twice, Paris twice, and I hate moving. And it's just, you know, tell me I need to move, and like it's tears for weeks, and it's because I think I moved around a lot, but I think it's also because like I laid down the roots, and I'm the kind of person who maybe because I've moved around a lot, immediately I try to create a community around me. So I do get attached. At the same time, especially as I grow older, the last few moves, like we moved from Abu Dhabi to Dubai recently, and I was dreading it, and I didn't want to leave, and I was so happy in Abu Dhabi. Day one of being in Dubai, like faster than any other move, I was like, oh my God, I love it here. Like, why was I dreading it? And it's because of that gratitude piece, you know, because like I keep saying, like, put me in China, I'll be happy in China, never want to leave. Tell me to move again, you know, like right now I don't want to move back to Abu Dhabi, but I didn't want to leave Abu Dhabi, long story short. It's exactly that. And seeing, you know, my parents live in Lebanon, you know, I've been there with my 2-year-old where there was a bomb down the street and then, like, you know, around beneath me, and I was thinking about, like, well, what's the alternative if I want to be close to family? Like, that's not a great alternative. Long story short, this gratitude piece is so critical for me with, you know, life generally, but especially in embracing these things.
I wonder if also that reality that we are living in a very luxurious place. And if we're not really happy here, is there a guilt thing that's such?
Of course.
You know, we're living in a really miserable place. We can sort of justify being miserable, but we're really lucky people.
Oh, but
really,
listen.
On a superficial level, we're very, very lucky. So it's sort of hard for us to be able to say, gosh, woe is me.
Well,
you know, we look at some of what our relatives might be living in, and then you know, it's hard to.
Yeah,
you know.
I totally experienced that in the beginning, and I hear you, because yes, there are many ways that we know we are privileged, and for various reasons, and we can look back from where we moved from, the countries we've lived before, and find the ways, but our mental state is still very important. And so we have all these outside luxuries, these outside things. I moved into a house with help that I never had, and things that I don't have to do, and all this time to work on myself, like, and I felt like, okay, this is useless. I shouldn't feel like this. My mom's over there upset and worried about me, blah, blah, blah. But if we are shaming ourselves for gifts from what if you believe in God or the universe or whatever, if we are shaming ourselves for things that make life easier, then we are, we're impacting the people around us that are giving us those things. So I really had to think, oh, my husband has given me this opportunity. And if I'm saying, you know what, you shouldn't have given me this because it's too much and this is not how I grew up, how does that make him feel, right? And so, yes, there's guilt, but again, it's how are we making ourselves feel about the guilt? Anybody would feel guilty about being here and seeing the workers and hearing migrant stories and hearing immigration stories and having a better situation. That's normal. That's okay, but it's okay. You're allowed to also be upset. You're allowed to also be upset, really. And we can hold all of those things, but that's the complexity of emotion. That's really it. And with the gratitude, which thank you for sharing, I can be in a crappy mood and remember gratitude and be like, oh, I don't want to do this gratitude list thing. But it's literally the thing that shifts my energy the most. But to start it when you're in a frustrated place can be really difficult. So there's different ways to do it. I sometimes just speak them out loud because I don't want to write down. But starting with the basic things. We have pen and paper. I had a toothbrush this morning. And then you can kind of get rolling. Because if you're not feeling grateful, I live in this great, safe place. We're very isolated from danger and theft or whatever, all the things. Then start with the very basic things like toothbrush or, this, I love your tumbler, like this coffee mug or whatever they are. Because sometimes our brain can't wrap around the big picture things, so we have to go really small. I love this conversation. Thank you very much for that. And we can, if you have individual things, I'm happy to stay and talk about them after. So the lead in, the second thing after we've become aware of how we're feeling is getting comfortable and practicing the muscle of actually asking for help. Because many of you shared, okay, I feel these things, nobody around me knows that I feel like this. And there are always ways, and I was not good at it for many years of asking for help from anyone. I took care of everything on my own. I can handle it. I don't need you, even if you're offering it, thanks, I'm all right. And I had to really get in the practice of asking for help. And for me, I felt safest asking for help from strangers more than the people closest to me. So that looked like, okay, I'll get a therapist because, I'm paying them, they have to help me. Okay, that's good. I think that's a huge step because many people are not comfortable doing that as well. But this is just a practice of getting clear on how we can ask for help. So they can be related to how you wrote down you were feeling or not. But first, what are 3 things that have been weighing on you, either on your to-do list or how you're feeling, things that are like these small, lingering things that just haven't gotten done or need to get done? It could be calling family members and checking in. It could be actual going to get something. But just what are 3 things that come to the top of your mind?
You can only be 3.
You can, make a list. Oh, thank you for coming. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if you have 3 or 2 or 2.5, that's all right. You can keep working on it. So I'll give you an example of one for me that's like more of an emotional thing and then one that's like a tangible thing. So for me right now, I've shared that we're having this transition with my husband's father, so my father-in-law in health in Malaysia. And I have been grinning and bearing it, saying, I'm cool, I got it. As long as he's okay, like we can move, we can do it, it's fine. But I was not, and I was burning out. And so I got very clear, even just yesterday, that I need help just with somebody to talk to that's a friend, that's not part of my family. And how can I ask for that? So I actually sent a text to my friend from Buffalo. I said, I'm going through this. Can I just talk to you maybe 20 minutes? I just need you to listen. Like, I don't need advice. I just need you to listen. So that was how I asked for help. A tangible thing I had to, so my father's coming into town this morning. We needed something at the house, and I was going to go get it on my way, and then I said, no, I'm going to ask my mother-in-law if she can do it. So I called her and said, hey, you're coming over for dinner. Can you just pick this up on the way? So that's a small example of something, okay, I'll do it. But I didn't have to. I thought of something else. So just take one of your things, your tasks or to-dos, and I can come around and help you if you want, if you don't know, or if you want to share with the group. Challenge yourself to find how you can ask for help with it. If this is hard for you, that's why I say that, because sometimes it's hard to ask for help. But who can you ask? And if there's no one, if there's nothing you can do, how can you, if you have a faith or belief system, how can you hand it over to God or the universe to take care of it if that feels helpful to you? But find something. You don't have an excuse to say there's nothing or no one that can help. That's my point. Does anybody have an example you want to share? Did you at least find a way to ask or something? Just say yes or no if anybody needs help finding a way to ask for help. You guys clear? You feel good about it? You feel okay? Yeah? Yeah, you were able to find something or someone? Okay. So then my third step is, okay, it's 9:10. By the end of the day, what time will you do this asking for help thing, or how will you ask by the end of the day? Just write down, I will do this by this time. It's a practice. This is not an easy thing. It's a practice, but... Okay, we feel good about that. I mean, as good as you're going to feel saying, why is she telling me to do this? Okay. Okay, so the main last piece that I want to share and have conversation with, and there are cards on the table, so if you're not with at least one other person, you can move in a second. But when I was writing my book, I became very clear on what I call the one thing. And so I said to myself, if I left this place, if I left Dubai and I didn't do this one thing, or I felt like I didn't milk it for all that it had, what would that one thing be? What would I regret not doing if I left, or not feeling if I left? And that can be a very helpful kind of like guiding light. And so for me, my one thing right now is I would regret leaving if I didn't practice being connected to these three things as much as I could. So meaning being connected to myself, being connected to my family, and being connected to the community here. So I would feel a bit of regret, a tinge of regret, if I didn't think I put in my effort to do this. For some people, it would be, I would regret if I didn't learn a bit of the language, or if I didn't go to the beach. Me also, if I didn't go to the beach more. I never go to the beach. That's like a thing I am working on. So maybe you have something different, but what is that one thing? And then focusing on, for connection for yourself, actually these three areas. So again, self, family, and community. So for yourself, that can be those 2 minutes, 30 seconds of the day that you check in and say, okay, this is me checking in with myself. Thanks, bye. And then you go on with your day. That can be how you're reflecting on how you're feeling. It can be the self-care that you're doing. Hi. And then with your family. So we all probably have some guilt or thoughts and feelings about our family or worries coming up, but how are we connecting with them? And what's important, I believe, with connecting to family stems from first understanding how you're feeling. So when I first moved, I was feeling, as she was sharing, she's not here, but a lot of guilt and worrying about my family, worrying about me. And so when we would check in on the phone, and they'd say, how's everything? I'd be like, cool, I'm good. Okay, everything's great, bye. Meanwhile, I was like in a mild depression. So when I wrote my book, my parents were like, why didn't you tell us what was going on? Like, you didn't tell me, are you okay? My mom finished the book and she's like, are you all right? Oh God, like why couldn't you just tell me you loved it first or something? So that was a reflection for me as I felt the resistance when I would see it's my mom calling or my dad calling or my aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever it was. I felt resistance, like, oh, I don't want to talk to them. And I wasn't sure why, but then I got more clear. I was like, because I don't want them to actually know how I'm feeling and I don't want them to ask me. Like, I don't want them to sense that something's off and them to ask me. And so being connected is actually sharing part of ourselves. And so there's cards on the table that I'm going to challenge you to use. Just pick up one with a partner. I use these so I have gatherings in Dubai for women right now to make friends and to make meaningful friendships and skipping basically small talk to connect with people. And I use these cards to help me facilitate. So I just want you to pick up a card. They all have questions on them. There's 3 levels. I didn't give you guys the deep, vulnerable ones. I gave you there's more up here if you want to try those later. So I just challenge you, pick one up with the person across from you, next to you. I can come to someone who doesn't have a partner and just answer the question. That's all. And then I'll share why afterwards. But if you don't like it, there's 3. You could pick a new one if you. Oh, you didn't have any? I'm sorry. I think, you know what, I grabbed the easy one, so take it.
The very first time I finished my mind is actually the opposite of being glad today. And I remember, so when he was diagnosed, I remember I was just like very, very sad. And people would say, just family time. And I'm like, no, space. Don't like, well, that's not like, you know, him getting his son when he was 14 years old, you know, I'm super worried about all the future. And it took me years to say that advice, like calendar, because I'm able to literally take things one day at a time. I'm able to just like let it all out and apply. I have no control over that. You know, like I can help him today, and I can provide him with opportunities to be successful and happy and to make progress in whatever areas we focus on that. Like we was like, that's all I do. And like, you know, so again, at this time I was like, you take it one day at a time. I was getting bombarded with that advice, and it was with that advice for me. And so that also ties into right now. Stormed under the roof. About what's next for us. And how did that work today? Just work on today. Let's go right now.
Are you home? other people think about
It's just not so.
Still like stretching.
What did you say?
Share.
If there's anyone who's having able to
It makes you think, right? Because you're looking about what my priority.
I can share a little bit. I think I've been in the way where I practice.
I think just the advice of seeking help.
Wait, I missed it.
Because Alan, who has been advising me and helping us. But I know she wants to be part of it. She wants to hear about how it's doing. And it's like, I should just really go to her and say, what do you think we should do in this situation? And so I should reach out and just times it's okay, you know, and so.
And I've done a total repeat.
Right, just a 1-minute warning to close up what you guys were chatting about.
Yeah. It's great. How do you connect with children? And sometimes kids don't really.
I do too.
But sometimes they like you know, I had these little prompts in my office and you find out so much just from that. About how your day was.
even like coming back from summer, then
right,
some of the roundabouts change and the traffic changes. Just to take a right hand before road anymore.
Church, and we go to lunch, and so while we're at lunch, I just divide them one of them doesn't have much to say. Because the other two do. So we usually
Similar, but
it's more fun for kids, but it's like last week I was out.
part of
If there were three places you were to go, what would you say?
things change around.
If there were only 5 things, it's like feeds me, you know. And then it kind of leads into like conversations.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I'm glad you guys are connecting.
It's just fun to come up random questions. Okay.
Exactly, yes, we won't. Thank you, I was just on the next.
I said I'm sure it's like,
Did you?
it's a rollover, right?
I don't know about that, but my friend gave it to me.
And it's a vegetable yogurt.
That's the only one I use.
So he doesn't roll
Yes.
It's filled if you tried.
Oh, really?
So sometimes
Oh, okay, then maybe it's not the one I saw. I'll try it.
start going to the back door approach. You know, you can go as far as you want. Right, and then as the trust develops, then they can't share.
Exhaust pause.
We're reflecting.
No, it's great.
Then I
Yeah, I'm the fourth and fifth grade counselor. How about you?
I have to be very sad.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Since August.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if I can just have your attention back, I want to get you guys out if anybody needs to go on time. So thank you. I'm really glad you guys were able to connect. And so maybe you're wondering, maybe you used the cards, maybe you didn't, but you were connecting. So what was the point of that? Quickly, these cards were actually created by a friend of mine in Toronto who moved from Germany and didn't know how to make friends. So I was there with him in Toronto when I lived there when he created them. And so I brought them over here. So if you're interested, I can give you information later on. But really, the point was this, and the reference to connection with self, family, and community, is these cards create an element of curiosity that we don't usually know how to find with people, other than what do you do, where are you from, how many times have you moved, where did you move from? That's what we tend to talk about, at least with the adults, right? With kids, we're more curious because they inspire that in us, I think. But my question then for you is, how can you be more curious first with yourself? What am I feeling? What's going on today? Why is that coming up? And then with the people you already know, and most specifically if you have a partner or you live with a roommate or someone, the person that you think you know, they're going to wake up, they're going to be in this mood, then they're going to do this, they're going to feel like this, they're going to come home, they're going to feel like this. How can you change that up in your mind and become more curious about them, what they're feeling, what they're doing? Because the truth is we never actually know what's going on in somebody else's head as much as we think we do. So how can we ask kind of questions that are inspired by these cards or somewhere just that you come up with to connect? And then within your community, you guys were doing that just now here with each other. But at my events, I actually have a rule that we can't talk about work. We're not allowed to talk about our jobs or what we do or how long we've been doing it, because what else do we talk about? And so that's just a challenge for some of you. So if you can have these pockets in your mind of, have I fostered, maybe you're really good at connecting with your family, but not so good with yourself or the community. Maybe you're really involved in the community, but not connecting to yourself. There's always one that needs a little bit more love. So just, I'm sure it already came into your head, so just hold that for you and encourage you to connect with that when you're feeling a bit off or disconnected or edgy or whatever with yourself. So we just have a few more minutes. I have more, but I want to stop before I do that. And yeah, so we're not going to do all that. But does anybody have questions? I can move on to other things or just close, but does anybody want to share stuff, have questions before we do that?
A question.
Yeah, please.
So can you order these here? Or,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
do you use them with children as well? I mean, some of these questions I think are pretty...
So there's actually, so there's 3 levels. So to answer your first question, he is sold out of the first batch. I will actually start wholesaling them here for him because I go to so many events, people want to get them. So I can get them for you.
Oh, cool.
The cards are in 3 levels. So there's Curious is the yellow, Brave is the blue, and then there's like a maroon, which is very vulnerable. Some of them for kids might not be, there's also questions that just might not be appropriate. Okay, so this one, the vulnerable example is, when did you not speak up but knew you really should have? That's one. Another one is, let's skip that one. In what way do you feel incomplete? That's another one.
I love some of those.
So,
you know what? Because I like those are nice for around family table.
Yeah, we were talking about that here, like sort of like sometimes kids.
Sure, yeah. Just 1 second.
Like how they feel.
Yeah.
But you can use these little props, and it's a little easier for them sometimes.
Yes.
Super helpful. Yeah, I can definitely, if you guys, I'll put my contact up here later. Anybody that's interested, you can filter them out yourself, or they're even great for like journaling prompts for yourself. When you can't connect to how you're feeling, they can be helpful. You guys had a difficult question. Can I try to help?
Well, just to explain, if you met your 10-year-old self today, what would they tell you?
Well, you.
So
So,
Like, are we saying if I met 10-year-old Amy right now,
Yeah.
what would she say to me?
Yes.
And that reveals some about what Amy was like when she was 10.
No, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Don't-
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
What's the answer? Can I put you on the spot?
And then would you change the future?
Right.
You still exist.
What would my 10-year-old say?
Don't psychoanalyze
I am the
yourself.
queen of overcomplicating things.
Just
I know. I'd be like,
Just answer. See what comes up when you answer the question. This is the curiosity and playfulness. We can
Oh,
be
Okay,
so
okay,
serious.
okay.
so this one would be probably like, I have a crush on Fielding, and like, I'm excited that basketball's starting.
Or
That's great.
you know?
My mom would never let me dye my
You might ask if we have jetpacks yet.
Yeah. It can be anything, and I think
Oh, okay.
There's all
it
kinds of
can be serious. It can be playful. Both will tell you something about yourself, but don't overthink it.
Okay.
When you were on that curiosity slide, I kind of had this epiphany because oftentimes when I go back home, I'm surprised how little people are interested in my life. And
I super relate to that. Yeah.
They just don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so. And maybe, but then I kind of flipped it in my head and thought, maybe I need to be more curious about their lives. You know, like, yeah, we go through the trauma of the move, and sometimes I need to talk about that with people. But they have their lives, and maybe I just need to flip that a little bit and start asking about how is it going for you, and, you know, things like that. Because a lot happens when you're gone.
Yes, yeah.
And
It's
so
challenging, and we
I can't always expect people to really understand my life
Right.
here. They won't unless they come here.
They won't. That's the thing. You guys understand each other on a level more than any of our family will understand us. And that's a very uncomfortable thing. Like, strangers get me more than these people, but it's true. And that's why the community part is so important. Because if you're getting connection from community, then that lack of curiosity in your life here from family won't hit you as hard. Because you have a foundation, again, with yourself, but also, and she was saying she's not here, with that family that we are choosing to create. And so we begin to have these, what do I get from this person that really feeds me? Like, from my dad is coming, I'm thinking, shit, okay, we have to travel, we have to do this. But he's here to support me because my father-in-law is ill. And so, but he's not going to worry about my book or me being at Lit Fest right now. But then I'll be like, oh, why didn't you ask? But he is here to feed a certain part of us our parents, specifically parents, can be very tricky because they don't want to upset us. And so they might ask how we're doing and be curious, but if we already feel closed off, they might not want to dig because they don't, whatever our dynamics are with our parents, they might not want to dig for that. So you're right in that leading with them, getting to know them, in a different way can sometimes open up things. But if you're feeling like you really need somebody to listen to you, like you really just want to share, then that's the piece where asking for help comes in and saying, listen, I'm really happy to see you and catch up and hear about all of this. I've been going through this thing and I actually really need your help. Can I talk to you about it for a minute? That's really, exactly. That's really freaking scary, like especially with parents. You would think maybe some people have my relationship at the beginning, I was in this practice of, I was living in New York, so I wasn't near them. And it's like, I have more questions that I want to ask you about like your childhood and growing up. Like, she's calling again to like get to know us. But now, then it opened up. They loved those conversations now. But our dynamics initially were not like that at all. So that first time you say, hey, I really just need to talk to you, it's going to be really uncomfortable. They might also get uncomfortable. But the repetitiveness of it is what makes people feel more. Is that helpful at all? I don't know. Yeah.
There's something like that very recently where there was something kind of major going on in my life. My mom was visiting. She knew, and we have this tradition of going for walks together, and that's normally a time to talk. And so I did that. I was like, so, what's going on with you? What's going on? And I tried that whole, so we just ended up talking about her the whole time.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the walk, I was like, I really wanted to talk about this. You know, I wish you asked me, and then I realized, okay, I should have just said, I want to talk about this. And so our next walk, we talked about it, but it doesn't always work to probe. Literally, it was like walk after walk after walk where I knew everything about her.
Yeah, and so asking for that help is really important. That's great.
And it is hard, but I learned, okay, if I really need this, I need to just make myself that vulnerable and ask for it, especially from my mom. So I think it was
Yeah.
Right. But a common complaint that I've heard from expats, I mean, I've been an expat more than I've not been an expat most of my life, and I've often heard expats say, my family back home, my friends back home never ask me questions. They don't want to know about my life. So I'll go back home and they'll tell me about what life is like, but they're not curious.
Yeah. But what I hear from that, and because I have experienced that too, is our experience of life also makes people back home confront their choices and their own lives. And there's a way that, okay, we live abroad and I'm on Instagram and everything looks really great. And so they don't really want to know that I got out of my hometown and they're still there. They don't want to know. So sometimes it's about us. That's totally possible, but a lot of times it's not. It's about their own reflection on themselves. And so if we can find a little bit more curiosity and just compassion of like, what is important for you to share? What do you really need them to know? And asking them to share, if you can share that with them, rather than putting pressure on them to ask us about everything. Only because a lot of people around me are very, like, in my experience and my friends that I've talked to, they're confronted with, oh, you got away, your life is better. Because we're constantly comparing, all of us are always comparing. We think their life is better because they're home and near our family, and they think we're happier because we got away. So that's always happening. So just giving some compassion to ourselves and finding other people to connect to in that way can take the edge off of our family and friends sometimes. So it's past 9:30. Anybody who needs to go, please go. I'm happy to sit here and chat a little bit more until my dad comes from the airport. His flight is an hour early today. I looked at the schedule. I'm like, oh crap, I have to go. But thank you all for being here. I just see we skipped all this. Okay, so if you want to keep in touch, email me, please. Instagram is also a good way, to the website. If you're curious about the book, it's available. Links are on my website or Kinokuniya stores and Virgin stores carry. So, yeah, please just keep in touch. I'm really grateful you're all here and you came and participated willingly. So, yeah. Oh, okay. I have a sample here if anybody wants to look at it. It's called At Home Anywhere, so the title of the chat. Yeah. And there's, yeah, of course. Each chapter ends with actually journaling reflections, reminders to ourselves and things like that. If you're not comfortable doing that inner reflection, there's a lot of good prompts in there. So, thank you.